Hello everyone, I'm your hostess with the mostest, 8-Second Gaming. In today's video, we are going to be talking about how to gear up your character. As people start to progress further and further through the game, they start to run into more and more plateaus that are holding them back, but don't worry, I'm here to help you guys out. And if you guys do find this video helpful, then help us out by hitting that like and subscribe button. It really actually does help the channel. But okay, let's jump into this. And first things first, you're going to want to be a decent level and in world tier 4 because that's when you can start to get ancestral gear. Ancestral gear is a lot better to hit a lot more your breakpoints, and breakpoints are just super confusing, so that's better left for another video, or else it's just going to bloat this one way too hard. And if you're in those lower levels still right now, you're going to be replacing gear way too often, and it isn't really worth thinking about gear just yet. So if you're still leveling your character, if you're still not level 50 at least, don't think about this quite yet. Finish off that leveling process and then come back. For me personally, my slowdown point with gear was around level 65, but your RNG might be a little bit different and you may find more or less gear to change that. Some people are very lucky. They are going to find amazing gear that works well with their build all the time. And other people, like my brother, are not going to find any gear anytime ever. But now that you've actually hit the right level, you're in world tier 4, you're ready to farm some gear, what do you need to do? Well, the best spot to farm gear is going to be in Hell Tides. And why Hell Tides, you might ask? Well, to start off with, they do spawn a bunch of mobs and have a bunch of events that just pop up very regularly. You can potentially run from one event to the other and then back to the original one and just keep going back and forth because they reset extremely quickly. But the mobs that are around the event also do respawn very quickly, so you can just run around and kill a bunch of mobs if you have a very fast build. Like me, I play a rogue, so I could just potentially keep jumping from group to group, aggroing a massive mob and then killing that. If you have a build like that, you can definitely do that as well. I've seen a ton of AoE druids work extremely well. I've seen some necromancers do extremely well with it, and the Ice Shard sorcerer is extremely strong with the AoE as well. But while doing these events and killing all these mobs, you're going to be dropping cinders, and those cinders can be used to open the chests that spawn around the event. Now, there are chests that do spawn with specific stuff, like you can go to a chest of protection that drops you gloves. However, you never, ever want to open anything other than a mystery chest. The specific chests, like the one that only drop gloves, drop doo-doo lame gear that you don't really want, and rarely ever actually drop any good legendary gear. But if you open a mystery chest, that drops a buttload of legendary gear and also even sometimes some rares, and it also drops elixirs. Now, because the mystery chests are so stacked and everybody wants to be opening these, they do take 175 cinders, but if you're actually really fast and efficient at farming and you have a really strong build, you can open up to 4 per Hell Tide if you are actually on the ball. If it's your first couple times doing Hell Tides and you don't know the area, you're not going to open 4, you're only going to maybe open 2 or even less. But once you actually start to get into the swing of Hell Tides, you start to understand how to farm them, everything like that, it's going to be a lot faster, it's going to be a lot more efficient, and you'll actually see how you can start to open 4 per Hell Tide. Now, the mystery chests are a little bit hard to find because they do spawn in different spots every single time, and it changes around from location to location. So to help you guys out, you'll definitely want to go to a website called helltides.com, and they show you the locations of all the mystery chests, no matter what the area, no matter what the Hell Tide is. And also they show the world event spawn locations inside the map as well. So as you're running around, you can start to find some world events, then you can find the mystery chest, and you're just going to always be more efficient because you know where everything is. And if one is not active at the current time, it does have a cooldown shown at the top of the screen, so you can start to see where the next one is and plan around that. But in between Hell Tides, there is a bunch of downtime. It's like over an hour. So do you just sit around and wait for the next Hell Tide to spawn? No, of course not. You always want to be maximizing your time spent out in the world, because if you have more time killing stuff, you have more chances to be dropping gear. And you do have a couple of options of what you actually want to do while you wait for the next Hell Tide. So the first thing is the Gathering Legion events. I'm going to talk about this one first because it does require the Legion event to actually spawn while the Hell Tide is down. So it takes a little bit of RNG, but if it does spawn, it's definitely something you guys are going to want to go do. These are giga-juiced world events that require multiple people, and thankfully when people do see these, they go to it, so you usually do have a pretty big group no matter what time. And in this, it's just a bigger world event. You kill a bunch of monsters, you kill a big one. You kill more monsters, you kill a big one. And then eventually a boss will spawn, and yeah, guess what? Kill him too, and then you get a bunch of loot. You can get up to 3 chests from this, and those chests just drop a bunch more gear. And so you can see that this is a great way to get gear. You're getting 3 chests that drop gear, plus you're getting a ton of XP from this as well. The Legion events are juiced a little bit harder, and that's why they require multiple people, but because they're juiced so much, you get more experience from this. So if you're fresh into World Tier 4, absolutely target these because you can level up extremely quickly from these, especially if you have an elixir going. As for what elixir, it depends on what your build is running, but if you just pop a random one, even just a resistance one, it still will help because you're getting the experience gain from it. Legion events are great. I love them. I always get a bunch of gear, plus you get a bunch of experience. That's why I mentioned them first. But the next two are going to be dungeon farming. And I'm going to say two because there's two different ways that you can go about this. The first one is just regular dungeon farming, where you find a dungeon that has a really fast layout, like the Ironhold dungeon or the Blind Burrow or even Champion's Demise. You run in, you kill all the elites that are in the starting area. After that, you leave the dungeon, you leave the game, the dungeon resets, you go back in, you do the same thing over and over and over. It's a little slow, so I do recommend doing this in a party if you can, because if you have one person that can just leave the group, you leave the dungeon, you just join the party again, then it does reset the dungeon and you don't have to leave the game. It's a lot faster, it's a lot more efficient, and if you're farming gear, efficiency is key. This is a really good way to farm a lot of different things. You do get experience on this because you are killing a bunch of elites. You do get gear from this because you are killing, again, a bunch of elites, but you also get a bunch of gold from this, and gold is great. You need gold in order to reroll different things, to imprint aspects, to add sockets onto gear. It's just a really useful thing, and a lot of people seem to forget how useful gold is when they are talking about farming dungeons. Now, this one is a little bit more of a dice roll when you are farming for gear. It's not going to be as efficient. You are going to be dropping a ton of gear, but because it has a lot less of a weight on it, you're not going to be dropping ancestral gear all the time, even if you are killing a lot of harder elites. More often than not, you're going to be getting sacred gear, and sacred gear usually isn't going to be a massive upgrade or even an upgrade at all, so it's just going to be getting used for scrap. Now, getting the crafting materials from the scrap is pretty useful as well, so it's not wasted time, but if you're looking to just farm gear that is better, this isn't the best chance that you have at getting it, although it is very efficient because you can kill stuff very quickly, get out, get back in, kill more stuff. But if you're looking at a better chance of getting higher tier gear, that is going to be our next dungeon farming, and that is going to be farming nightmare dungeons. Now, as of right now, nightmare dungeons are pretty pesky to run. You have to get the sigil, you have to pop the sigil, you have to find the dungeon, you have to run to the dungeon, you have to get in the dungeon. It's a lot of downtime between dungeons, and it is a little annoying. In the future, that is going to be changing. They are going to be adding a teleport feature in, so this is going to be a lot more viable in like the up and coming updates. But until then, it is going to be a little bit more annoying. But the downtime is kind of worth it when you think about the more benefits that the nightmare dungeon has. The normal dungeons go off of your level. The nightmare dungeons go off the sigil level, so you can actually get monsters that are higher and farm them instead. If they're higher level, they have more chances of dropping better gear, better ancestral gear, so you could be getting upgrades more often. Not only that, but higher level monsters drop, again, more gold and other stuff. So as you're doing these nightmare dungeons, you could be getting a bunch of gold, a bunch of gear, and potentially even crafting materials as well. And at the end of the dungeon, once you finish it, you're going to get this big bubble of invulnerability around you, and you can go and upgrade your glyph. And glyphs are a massive power spike as they level up. They keep giving you benefits. So as you're doing these nightmare dungeons, you're going to be able to level up your glyphs, giving you more and more power, and potentially even finding better gear to give you even more power. And once you do finish a nightmare dungeon, on top of getting your glyph level, you do get a guaranteed legendary and another item. So that's even more gear that you're getting on top of that. So while I do agree nightmare dungeons are a little bit annoying to run because of all the setup time that they do have, but at the end of it, they are a lot more worth it if you're just trying to get more power levels out of this. And the last thing we need to talk about when actually getting better gear is, of course, the Purveyor of Curiosities, because as you're doing different events like Hell Tides and Gathering Legions and stuff like that, you are going to be getting the obols. And you can use these at the Purveyor of Curiosity to gamble for better gear. Now, a lot of people go about this the wrong way because they look at what their gear needs and then they gamble based off of that. You can find a helmet very easily. You do not need to use your obols on this. Something like jewelry is a lot harder to find, so if you have obols, definitely gamble for better jewelry upgrades. But another very solid option that you can do that a lot of people do opt for is to just gamble for gloves to find really high rolled offensive aspects and then rip those out. Aspects are a huge boost to your power level, and if you can get a really well rolled one, it can be a massive benefit for you and your build. But let me know your favorite way to get better gear in the comments down below, and if you guys want to stay up to date with the latest and greatest Diablo 4 tips, tricks, and news, don't forget to smash that like and subscribe button. Thanks all for watching. Once again, I'm 8 Game, and I'll see you guys in the next one.